Ask Osama bin Laden and the 22 out of 30 top al-Qaeda leaders who've been taken off the field whether I engage in appeasement. Or whoever's left out there. Ask them about that.
And in the White House press conference, he said, ask Osama bin Laden if I'm an appeaser.
Right. He wants to talk about bin Laden. It's terrific that he got bin Laden. We all give him credit for that. But Iraq and Afghanistan are two places where this president is absolutely failing.
Welcome back to the Ed Show. Anytime President Obama dares to take some credit, particularly on foreign policy, here come the Cheneys. It's a family thing. They just can't help themselves. Liz Cheney on Fox News on Sunday attacking the president. The next day, her father, former vice president, he's out on CNN. But it still wasn't enough. So the former vice president went on to the Early Show on another network. 3 days and 3 appearances by a Cheney in the attack mode. It would be hilarious if it weren't so infuriating. The man who played a huge role in getting us into the most ill-conceived war since Vietnam. The man who insisted Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. The man whose cronies profited from the Iraq mess altogether. The man who will lie every single day about Iraq. Dares to go on TV and second-guess President Obama. Here's Cheney criticizing the troop withdrawal from Iraq.
We're now in a situation where we're pulling all of our troops out of Iraq, period. No stay-behind force.
No stay-behind force. Well, Cheney fails to mention the private contractors that you and I are paying for, who provide security to the Americans still in Iraq doing diplomatic work after the troop withdrawal. So how serious is this? Do you really think that President Obama and the people on his cabinet would say, let's just get out of Iraq because we made an agreement to, and don't worry about those 17,000 Americans that are still there. They can fence for themselves if something happens. You really think that's the way they think in the White House, Mr. Cheney? What a cheap publicity stunt you are. Joining me now is Jon Soltz, chairman of VoteVets.org. Jon is also an Iraq War veteran and served as a major in the Army on the field and recently returned from Iraq in his final deployment to that country. Jon, good to have you with us again tonight. I appreciate it. What do you make of this rhetoric? How, should I say, unsafe are the Americans left behind?
Well, I think the big point is there really aren't that many Americans left in Iraq. You have the embassy staff, and then you have the contractors that specifically support the foreign military sales. But a huge chunk of this contractor force that everyone talks about, these actually aren't Americans. They're people who, work in the chow halls from, southern Asia and these types of countries. So there really aren't a lot of Americans left. I think that's one of the best things this administration did. There was a tremendous amount of pressure in the summertime to actually extend U.S. forces, and they did a really good job of lowering our number to 157. That's all that's going to be left on the ground of U.S. military. Then there's going to be some other Americans on the ground, but a chunk of these contractors are, simply just force protection assets to protect what's left.
Liz Cheney says that the president is failing in both Afghanistan and Iraq. The former vice president says that we are leaving people behind there who are going to be at risk, and it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. Is he telling the truth? Is she telling the truth?
It's completely false, the idea we're leaving, the Iraqis in some type of chaos, in a sense that we're completely withdrawing. Yes, there's 157 U.S. military in Iraq, but we're leaving components of our U.S. Army in Kuwait. So we have a regional quick reaction force, we call it. I think also, you're attacking the president who killed Osama bin Laden and ended the Iraq War. I mean, the Iraq War was obviously a huge distraction, and now they're sort of opposing the plan that they supported when he was the vice president. So now he's sort of against himself. And essentially, if we don't leave Iraq when the Iraqi government asks us, the entire point of the mission was useless because it's Operation Iraqi Freedom, and the Iraqi democracy doesn't want us there anymore.
When the former vice president comes out and says this garbage, why do you think the White House never seems to push back?
Well, I think they do push back. I happen to just be over there, hearing, some people talk about certain things that the White House is messaging this week. I do think that you're going to see this week them push back. Look, it's important for this president to talk about the fact that he killed bin Laden, that he's focused on a global strategy to kill al-Qaeda, and that he ended the Iraq War. I think with Dick Cheney, it just might be a case of the fact that he really doesn't matter anymore. I mean,
he has nothing to politically lose. He can come out and run his mouth and create the doubt.
he's grabbing straws. I mean, he's looking to get his name in the press, and he says that completely outlandish things that are, irrelevant. I mean, this isn't a winning message for Republicans in 2012. Do they really want to talk about how they started an unnecessary war that 55% of the country thinks we should never have fought in the first place, and much larger numbers think we should be out of? I mean, it's a terrible place for them to be when they're trying to beat an incumbent president.
Here's Cheney talking about the downed drone in Iran.
For us to go in and take out the drone that crashed would have been, I think, a fairly simple operation, and it would have denied them the value of the intelligence they can collect by having that aircraft. But the administration basically limited itself to saying, please give it back, and yesterday the Iranians said no. I was told that the president had 3 options on his desk. He rejected all of them.
John, what's your response to that based on what you know?
Still laughing. This is the guy who wants to start a war for a robot. I mean, they don't have a down U.S. pilot. They don't have a member of the American military hostage. They don't have people in their embassy that are American civilians. I mean, this is a robot that fell out of the sky, and he wants to start a war over it. I mean, the Iranians have a tremendous amount of reach within Iraq and within Lebanon and the Palestinian Authority. I mean, they could cause some problems. It's just not worth starting a war over a robot when, there's a pending nuclear issue that we're facing with them.
And he keeps throwing out the idea that the Iranians are so close to a nuclear weapon. The experts that I've talked to are saying at least a decade away. Why does he keep doing that?
I think he's just saber rattling. I mean, he's trying to draw an argument that this administration is weak, when in reality, the increase of strength that you've seen from the Iranians happened under the Bush administration. Democratically, their allies in Iraq have won. They're very close to the regime in Syria. Their allies in Lebanon have gained strength politically. Their allies in the Palestinian Authority have gained strength politically. So it was under the Bush administration where the Iranians gained a tremendous amount of political strength throughout the Middle East, and this is simply him trying to deflect the fact that he's the biggest reason why we have an Iranian problem.
And conservatives are out there now pushing the idea that now that our military forces are out, there's contractors back there, and of course that's going to cost the taxpayers still billions of dollars, that we really have to worry about an Iranian invasion of Iraq. What about that?
Well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The fact is that the Iranians have a very close relationship with Nouri al-Maliki. Yes, he's a nationalist. Yes, he has a relationship with the United States. But Nouri al-Maliki and Muqtada al-Sadr have a very close relationship with Tehran also. So an Iranian invasion of Iraq can't happen. First, because we're leaving U.S. forces in Kuwait to prevent that. Second, it can't happen because essentially that would undermine the Iranians' influence. They would have less influence by invading because it would fracture the current Iraqi government and could possibly pull the Kurds out. So the best thing the Iranians can do in Iraq is support Prime Minister Maliki, and that's certainly been their strategy. And that is, essentially the Prime Minister of Iraq who came to power under the Bush administration.
Jon Soltz of VoteVets.org, thanks for what you did for the country. Thanks for serving, Major. I understand you're no longer a Major, just back from Iraq. All the best to you. We'll be in touch.
I'm just a vet. Thanks, Ed.
There you go. Well, a very important vet, no doubt. Coming up, more dishonesty from the folks at Fox News. Wait till you see their latest chart. They have charts. Yes, they do, and they don't tell the truth. And stay tuned for the Rachel Maddow Show tonight with her interview with Vice President Joe Biden. That's coming up right after the Ed Show. Stay with us.